What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Roe v. Wade. So I was actually sent a screener for this movie. This movie actually comes out on April 2nd, or Good Friday, so a little bit over a week from now. A big thanks to the publicist who sent me this movie to check it out. I'm always grateful to see anything new that I have not already checked out. I recently had watched a review from my buddy David from Interpreting the Stars, who saw this movie, and his review for it was not very glowing. So I was definitely interested in checking it out myself. And so what I can say about this movie is it's going to be a touchy subject, right? This is a controversial topic for anybody who's not familiar with Roe v. Wade. This is the iconic, absolutely historic case that dealt with, the legalization of abortion and all that jazz. So undoubtedly, in the real situation that happened, there was plenty of dark things that happened on both sides. There were agendas on both ends, undoubtedly, as there are in most cases that happen in the U.S. It just is what it is. Like, that's just going to be the case, especially when it comes to such a controversial, divided topic such as abortion. This movie is made from the viewpoint of somebody who's pro-life. The pro-choice side of the story, though each side, again, has its dark things, the pro-choice side is depicted definitely to be the villain, to be demonized in the story. Now, you may be listening to me and be a pro-life person and may think, well, that's exactly what I want to watch. And so what I know about this movie right out of the gate is that it's a movie that's going to work for some and it's not going to work for others. As a movie in and of itself, and as somebody who loves to, critique films, what I will say is that it's well shot, it's well acted for what it is. There's a couple moments of some performances and some moments of dialogue that really didn't work for me, mostly in the dialogue. You do have a pretty surprisingly good cast with people like Jon Voight, Joey Lawrence, Corbin Burnson, so many others that I recognized, and I was like, oh wow, this person's in this movie too, because when I started it, I wasn't really too sure if I was gonna know anybody who was in the movie. Jamie Kennedy is in this movie as well, and I think my biggest issue with this movie was that I was actually kind of bored. Anybody who watches this channel knows that the biggest negative I can give a movie is it being boring. I'm okay with a controversial film. I'm okay with me being able to recognize that the film itself maybe depicted a story that's a little bit opposite of my views, while also still being able to praise what works and criticize what doesn't work. And what I can say about this movie on an overall level is that, yeah, it definitely is coming from a different standpoint. I am personally pro-choice. I understand why people are pro-life. I understand the argument on both ends. I think it's not as black and white as people like to make it seem it is. But what I can say overall is I am pro-choice. So naturally, with a film like this that definitely has a bias in its filmmaking, you can't help but have your own bias in it and just feel like you can't really connect to the movie. Beyond that, I just felt like the writing wasn't all that great. I wasn't really engaged in the narrative of these characters. I couldn't really care less about what was going to happen. And the movie is put together in such a way that you kind of feel like you're being spoon-fed and it kind of becomes boring to watch. One of the main actors in the film is also the director of the film, or one of the directors, Nick Loeb. The film is also directed by Cathy Allyn, so you have the male and female perspective going into it. But what I can say is that Nick Loeb, being the main character, or one of the main characters, not the main character, I think he's the main character. Honestly, I couldn't tell because the movie was kind of all over the place as far as the various characters. But Nick Loeb plays a big part in the movie, and I enjoyed his performance. He kind of looks like a little bit like Zachary Levi, kind of like he could play his brother or something. But what I can say is that, he's the director, he's one of the main characters, and he also is, I would say he is the main character because he is doing voiceover over the course of the film. And the voiceover is just narration going scene to scene, transitioning into what's happening. But a lot of times it was just in the middle of scenes. A character could be handing a piece of paper to somebody and he would pause the frame and give, some sort of narrative, some sort of background to give us more details on what the paper is. Then they would literally speak or something, and then moments later it would freeze again, and then he would just add on more dialogue, more narrative to kind of expand upon what was just said by the characters. I felt like you're consistently being spoon-fed, and I just didn't like the consistent narration throughout. I don't mind narration in films, but it can be used in a way to kind of set a tone or maybe kind of transition, but not all the time. I think this movie did it too many times, and sometimes it almost felt like it wasn't necessarily planned correctly, because there was a few moments where actors were talking or something and their face is kind of all like, and they literally are talking over it. And speaking of kind of things being out of sync, I did notice quite a few moments of bad ADR where the dialogue wasn't matching the lips. So what I can say about this movie overall is that, it's shot well for what it is. The color palette's very saturated with like a very like orangey yellowish tint, which was fine. I wasn't crazy about that. You know, most of the performances are good. Everybody's solid in the film. Nobody's giving a bad performance. There's a few moments that don't work 100%. But the dialogue, the script, and the way that the film was actually put together, I didn't allow for me to really care for the characters or what was happening. And again, without a doubt, I just find that this movie definitely demonizes the pro-choice side, which many may agree with and many will not agree with. You know, I think it didn't really take a neutral stance on it in any way, shape, or form. And it just kind of made everybody that was pro-choice in this movie, for the most part, kind of feel like they were maliciously kind of wanting to just make this happen. But there wasn't really that mental movement of what pro-choice really is, which is, you know, the choice being there for the women who, you know, may have been raped or may have had other, you know, issues, maybe health issues. You know what I mean? It kind of, I don't know, the way they depicted the story definitely is leaning on the more pro-life side. And I think if you're a pro-choice person or, you know, somebody who's had to get an abortion, this movie may rub you the wrong way. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. You know, I can understand anybody who may be tapped out from this video earlier because maybe you like to watch me just talk about, you know, wizards in space with laser swords, and that's the kind of stuff that I talk about. But I do like talking about various types of movies, and especially ones that kind of touch on some controversial topics, because I think these are going to be the ones that are far more subjective than your typical films. So I'm curious to hear what people will say about this movie when it comes out on April 2nd. Again, a big thanks to the publicist for sending me a screener so I can check it out. As usual, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below. Comment your thoughts on the video as well as this movie. Have you seen it? Are you looking to see it? Definitely curious to hear what all of you guys have to say. And subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one, all right? Bye-bye.